Welcome, Roman. You just tell us
Thanks for having me.
a bit about your business, Air Locker.
Yep. Airlock is a hybrid business model, which is really the point of difference, even though Airlocker training is based around hypoxic therapy and training. Um, the model is group training, morning and afternoon, and allied health services during the middle of the day, targeted specifically at the disability sector. Here in Australia, that's a framework around the NDIS scheme. So what you'll see in an Air Locker training studio, you'll see group training classes morning and afternoon, around 4 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and then from 10:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., you'll see allied health services being done by medical practitioners, physiotherapists, EPs, OTs, one-on-one clients, small group recovery rehab classes. And that will happen 5 hours in the middle of the day. So it's kind of like a hybrid business model all in one, and it pulls from the big kind of point of difference we have, which is the hypoxic therapy, hypoxic training, which means low oxygen environment. So simulated altitude training is pretty commonplace for people that are looking for a performance edge in sports. Elite athletes use it all the time. What a lot of people don't realize is the benefit it has for rehab and recovery. So yeah, it's a franchise business as well. Flagship started in Newcastle 2019 in August, and we started franchising the business in September 2020.
Okay, that's pretty quick. So was that something
Yeah.
you set out to do from the beginning, to go into franchising?
From a business point of view, no. From a personal perspective, Airlocker was my kind of cry out to change what I was currently doing. I was in mining, and I was always on the road traveling. So I kind of wanted to do something on a small basis, just at home in Newcastle. So I was thinking like getting involved with the health and fitness industry in a gym, but I didn't want to do. I wanted to do something different. It's kind of like one of my traits is always try to do something different. So it was that's what started it. And when we started the first gym, and as a lot of business owners would know, like what you have in your head, how it's going to go, and when you actually do it, was completely worlds apart. So I think I was a bit naive on how this industry worked. I thought it was going to be quite simple. But yeah, a lot of time and energy in that first studio. It was quite tough. It was extremely tough, to be honest. We're at the brink of failure many a times. There was a lot of mistakes we made. But in potentially like going into the franchise business, when COVID hit us in March 2020, everything kind of stopped, right? Which was an additional challenge we had to face. And during that stop time, just trying to be productive and look at other ways that we can continually work. And that's when we started to really formulate the franchise business in behind the product.
Nice. And yeah, so franchising, great way to expand your business. And it's often, it's not the flavor of the month at the moment. But what would you tell anyone with a business that's got some growth and kind of working? What do they need to consider to prepare to become a franchise?
I think it firstly takes a special person to do franchising. If you think about it, like when you back yourself, you might invest in something that it's your idea. There's a lot on the line, a lot of risk, but there's a comfort that it's your money, it's your investment, your time. So if the thing that you decide to do doesn't work out, there's a lot of self accountability. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You can sleep at night, but essentially when someone else is purchasing your idea and your support, there's this level of holy shit, this fear factor that someone else has invested, sometimes their life savings in your idea.
Yep.
There's a level of there's just something in that changes the thought process and the feeling around it all, because your thoughts are all about their success. And I think franchisors that take that quite seriously and personally are the ones that generally go well. So I think when you're considering if you want to do a franchise, you need to understand that, yes, it's got scalability, but it's extremely difficult to be able to create a franchise system that supports franchisees be successful, which is the underlying kind of goal around franchising is franchise success.
Yeah.
But it takes a special type of person that can really bear that responsibility to take that through. And one thing that I have learned from franchising is it's that fear factor of someone else not succeeding that has enabled me to have the energy and the conviction to build the team, invest in tech, put the work in to make sure they're successful. So, look, it's great for scalability, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot to it. And what we did, Stephen, which was a little bit naive again, is the fact that I started to do the franchising model before we really ironed out product one. Now, we didn't do the off-the-shelf product or service. There was a lot to learn from product one, being our first gym.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was the workout flows, there was the science that backed up what we were doing, there was the tech involved, it was machinery we were using, it was the marketing, it was the sales, there was so much we needed to learn. But because of COVID, we just transitioned straight into the franchise model with really like not enough data to effectively do the initial first franchisees, because I just backed myself and I backed the team that we could support anyone that invested in that brand. So I think we're a little bit underdone, but like you've heard in a lot of business success stories, like you just throw yourself in the deep end and you figure it out along the way. But I definitely, if I had my time again, I'd have a lot more thorough understanding about product one before we started to franchise.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. So, how many franchises do you have now?
We've got 16 operating franchises in Australia. So they're operating, and we've got 78 sold. So it's been quite a really successful sales year in 2022. 2023, we're forecasted to open anywhere between 40 to 55 studios.
Nice.
But we'll start to see the brand go into America in May in San Diego. We'll be in New Zealand, in Christchurch, Newmarket, which is in Auckland, Hastings, which is Napier and Nelson next year, and then also in Singapore. So that's the next evolution of the product, is to start to support it globally. But it's probably a long answer to how we get to that point. But it's been a massive growth phase, right? And people that are in franchising would understand, like, to go from, in 2021, to go from 3 operating studios to 16, and by the end of last year, and then go from 16 to 60, but go global as well. This year really for us is the make or break year, right? So it's exciting, mate, but there's a lot of work to be done. And I know, and I'm confident our team will execute, but a lot of work to be done.
Okay, so you talk about your team a bit there in their support for you and helping you look after the franchisees. What's your advice for I guess established entrepreneurs, but new entrepreneurs bringing on a team and getting the best out of them?
You need to simplify the formula, right? In any business, there's going to be key metrics. Let's just put aside the product, right? Because the first and foremost, you've got to get the product right and all the service right. You've got to make sure the customers are raving about it. And there's so many things to that and so many levels to that. But what I would say about that, that's a continuous loop of reflection, learning, A/B split testing, voice of customer. There's a huge amount of work. You need to be really, really on the base level with your customer to get the product right.
Yep.
I feel like the other thing, you need to be outside of your head. So you need to really not think that what you love, everyone else loves. So you've got to be really engaged with your customer. So there's a lot of work to be done there. But once you get the product to a point where you can start to see it being successful and scalable, really from that point, you're focusing a lot on your team at that point to deliver the product, deliver the service. However, once you get to a point where you start to see the product take shape, your focus in a franchising business in particular is to really focus in on your team. And it always has to be run like a corporate governance has to be there. You have to have policies and procedures. You have to have framework, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have organizational structure, reporting lines, KPIs, budgets. So a really effective kind of business strategy for anyone looking to, set up a successful business on the back of a team is you need to understand the key metrics that make your business successful. So whether it be revenue growth, whether it be product margin, you have to understand what revenue drivers you can leverage from. So in a franchising business in particular, where are you generating your revenue? Where else could you generate revenue? And the exciting thing about franchising businesses is based on scale, there's a lot of deals you can get done like that support a franchise. So marketing, in-house the marketing, rather outsource the marketing. You can get a fixed cost around that on scale, which gives you a profit margin, an additional revenue stream. It could be things like tech support. It could be things like, like product. It could be fit out. It could be all this stuff, right? So understanding where the key metrics are to making your business financially successful is key. And then putting a framework around a budget and a KPI around a certain head of department is something that served us really well. Nice. So you've got to split your business up into certain departments. So marketing, ops, coaching, sales, marketing, HR, accounts. And as the owner, you need to be really engaged with what each function needs from your support. And then you need to set up the right framework around how on a monthly basis we measure success once you understand what those metrics are. And need to set targets. I think as a business owner, you need to be a visionary, but you also need to be a leader in that aspect, but definitely be a manager that you back down with them. So if we're coming up a big mountain, it's okay if you be up the mountain, but you need to get the whole team up there. So you do that through your monthly reporting. You do that through your governance. You do that through your policies, procedures. Once you set that out, and usually what I find really effective is a calendar. So if you can forecast your calendar of events, in particular communication along that year, you've got a really structured framework. One, you know the metrics that make your business successful. Two, you've got people accountable for those metrics and KPIs. Three, you've got a communication strategy around reflection to continue to learn. Four, you've got this calendar built out in forward thinking to make sure that you're keeping on top of that stuff. And then making decisions are very clear, right? Then performance managing is really clear. No one can hide, right? You don't want to go too top heavy because people hide behind others. So you just want to kind of get that set up and then empower those senior staff to really take care of whatever their team looks like. And as you grow, you have a formula that for every X amount of studios we have, we need one more support person, one more pre-sale person, one more marketing person, tech support. You have a formula how that looks, and you continue to look at it. And myself as the CEO, I whilst they're looking at their budgets, their KPIs, their team, our franchisees, I'm looking at them. And that's a key part. You want to make sure that they are delivering, they're executing on the plan, but you as their leader is looking at them, checking in with them, making sure that, they're highly performing, making sure that any blockages they may have, you're seeing it before them. And that's probably the formula to creating a really successful business in the franchising space.
Yeah, nice. It sounds like you got some great structures to provide clarity for your team, so they know exactly what they're doing. Here's the thing, that's HQ, but the gym, like what we do at Air Locker Training from a franchising perspective, there's not too much variability in the business year. That's fantastic. It's very predictable what we do, right? So what we've found that works really well for our franchisees, and it's numbers based. We see the numbers, all our franchisees are hugely successful, is because they run their business as if they're a corporate company, right? They've got KPIs, budgets, calendars on marketing, ops, coaching, social calendar. We teach their business owners on how to have those monthly meetings on budgets and KPIs, what metrics matter. We teach them how to run the business like a business, like a corporate business. And having that confidence on how to use a very clean, simple strategy on how to run a team and how to run a business takes all the guesswork out of it. And it's like a coaching team. What you want to do
in particular for businesses, and when you start to employ employees, you want to make sure that all they're really responsible for is their energy, their effort, and their attitude. Now, when you start tasking them with strategies and tactics, the emotion of like something may happen, the emotion, they'll just be sporadic. There's no forward thinking. Now, that's where the ownership group in our franchisee group with HQ support needs to look at strategies and tactics.
Yep.
So when we put the strategies and tactics for marketing, for coaching, for whatever that might be, sales on the playing field, the staff, they know exactly what they have to hit, but they just have to focus on their energy and attitude, and anyone can do that. So that's what the key to Airlocker is to set up a business support system and an overarching business system that just allows the employees to focus on attitude, energy, and effort, and the tactics will be held within the ownership group and HQ support.
Fantastic. So neat and tidy. Well done.
Yeah.
So Roman, if I can get you to, cast your mind back through your entrepreneurial journey.
Sure. Yep.
What event or multiple, let's call them setbacks or failures, have most shaped you as a business owner?
Probably start from just an ambition and a belief as a kid, right? I think I'd start there because it's a question I've been asked a lot in interviews before. I don't know if I was different to other kids, but I always believed I was going to do something special. But my dream back there was through sport, right?
Okay.
So I've always had a competitive nature, a very inquisitive nature as well. Looking back on it, I think that was instilled in me through heroes that I used to watch on TV. So something ignited me as a kid that wanted to be, outside of the norm. Where I grew up was very modest. It was a country town in Dubbo, and we didn't have much as a kid, but I think I wanted to be better than that. I wanted to break the mold for my family. I wanted to change the narrative. So I think I had it as a kid, but throughout my journey, I had a huge amount of mentors. And like I said before, my whole goal was football, rugby union, rugby league. When I was 19, I made the Australian team when I was in year 12. So I was definitely on my way to being a professional athlete. But when I was out of school, I had 3 knee reconstructions on my left knee. So, and they're all ACL reconstructions. So on the same knee, back to back on 2 occasions, and then 14 months after the last one, I did it again. So that was my career over. I was 20 years of age. All I'd ever dreamed about was football. So I think from that point, it was like, all right, what am I going to do? Right. Now, at that time, redefining what I wanted to do, it wasn't on my mind. I was just let loose for a period of a few years. So I think by the time I was 22, I didn't go anywhere really in career or education or learning. I just kind of, gave into everything and just, partied and kind of felt sorry for myself for 3 years, and then picked myself up in my early 20s and started at the basis of like, all right, what am I going to do? And started labouring. I was a labourer in a process working, a process job, mining processing. Then I was brickies labourer, did all that stuff. And, you sit down at lunchtime, bricky labouring, your skin's all off your fingers, your heat stroke, you're thinking, geez, there's something better out there for me than this. And that was a humbling moment. But from that point, I want to educate myself and go into business and leadership. I always liked being around people. I love to think that, I was a student, so I was really good at learning. And went back to uni, did my engineering. I was in Newcastle at that stage, so I thought mining was the way to go because we're a big mining town. So, and from that point, mate, my wife and I, we got married. We purchased our first house. Financially, always in trouble. It was a week-to-week basis at that point, early 20s, but we wanted to have a family. That was something we always wanted. So our first child was born. At that stage, I was still kind of just labouring, but I was doing my study. And when my first son was born, 11 years ago, we had an issue with him breastfeeding. So my wife would go to sleep at 6 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and then I would go to sleep from 1 o'clock to 5:30, and then go to work. But what I did from that 6 o'clock to 1 o'clock was just educate myself on process improvement. I would watch, motivational clips from all these people that are fantastic in the world, Dwayne Dyer, Tony Robbins, these kind of guys, Les Brown. And from that point, I started to do mini courses, like speed reading courses I did. I did a Lean Six Sigma black belt, which is a process improvement course online. Started to look at different languages, and so I would work 5 to 6 hours every night on these things, and then go to sleep for my 5 hours, go to work, continue after work. I'd do my university. I finished my engineering degree. From that point, I got a better job in a workshop as an operations manager, which was the first time I got to wear a collar and a watch, and kind of be looking at P&L responsibility, which I loved. So then I pivoted into finance courses online. So I was doing finance courses online, reading finance books, learned budgeting, learned P&Ls, did all that stuff. And then I had so much of a passion to that, I wanted to do my MBA. So I did my MBA. I enlisted in doing my MBA. At that time, I learned about networking. So I thought I'd get back involved with rugby, and I coached first grade in Newcastle, the rugby team first grade.
Okay.
So I was doing my MBA, coaching first grade, working full time, first time kid. And my full day was just like completely stacked. Financially struggling month to month to get by. But it was that back against the wall that gave me a run of about 3 years of just literally working my ass off. Everything the CEOs that I was reading about and listening to were doing, I started doing. So reflection, I reflected every day, all these things, right? And then all of a sudden, I landed a really good job when I was 27 on the ports, 27 ports around Australia as a national bulk manager. So I used to do relationship management with all the key clients, which was awesome. And then started my own business when I was 29, and that went really well in civil. And then from that point, mate, it's just been a perpetuating effect in my whole career. So really, like, I think for me, like looking back on it, I just worked at a level that not many people I knew were working. So it was education, networking, self-education, studies, and just grinded for literally like 4 to 5 years, which set me up for the rest of my life.
Wonderful.
Mm.
Thanks for that. And it's a really, really good example of how you turned what could be deemed, a challenge with your son, having to stay up at night and that kind of stuff into an opportunity, and it pays off in the long run. Yeah.
I mean, it was just lucky and fortunate for me that my mindset was, what can I do now that's positive? That's where I was at that time of life. I was on that big self-education journey. And it's from a click of a button on the internet, you could find some really motivating things, and it shifted my mindset. It gave me a passion for reading and reflecting, and it's held me in really good stead ever since. Like, I haven't stopped reflecting since that day. There'd be very seldom that you would go in my diary that you'd see 3 or 4 days straight with no reflection. So it's something that I've stayed with me for 11 years.
Awesome.
And I think, I say this to a lot of people that I mentor, and I just think the number one thing that I did that I think has made me where I am now is reflection. If you were to put it down to one thing, it's reflect. Because for me, like, there's so much to learn about yourself and unpick about yourself. And there's so many things that happen every day that you're the one that has the emotion towards it. You're the one that reacts to it. If you can start to unpick that, you're learning from your own book.
Yeah.
And then you can start to get into a point where you start, rather than reflecting, you're inflecting as things happen. You've been here before. You know the pathway. You know the emotion. You know the adjustment you need to make. And you start to have a certain language, which is yours. You start to speak with authenticity. You start to speak in stories, and it's just such an engaging thing. And I think it's such a powerful tool. And I've always lived on the concept, if it makes sense in my head, I'm okay with it, right? So I started, as long as it makes sense in my head, even my read on somebody or something, as long as I make sense of it, that's fine. That's it. That's gospel to me.
We're going.
Gives me enough to move on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a key thing, but reading's the other powerful thing as well, mate. But like you said, took something that was a challenge into a positive, and it's a real key learning for any business owner is try to look at the positive in everything.
Nice. And this one's a bit of advice for the viewers out there. What do you say when, because and I want to say on this concept of reflection. It's I couldn't agree more with you that it's such an important thing, that you hear this pushback or the excuse, I haven't got time.
Yeah, it's
stop. What do you say?
So reflection is exactly that when you first start it, but it's like everything. Like when you first start something, like I couldn't believe how long it took. You know, especially trying to get your thoughts on paper. So you start with a framework. My framework was always don't look at reflecting of everything. Like it could be a conversation you had, it could have been an event that happened in the day, it could be just a thought or a feeling you've got. You don't have to reflect on the whole day. Just choose one thing and then write about it. And then what you need to do is like what your emotion or your thought process or your action was to it. Try to unpick that and say, why do I react to that this way? And what you find, and sometimes it's highly emotional, you go back to your childhood a lot. You start to unpack things that you may have thought that that's why you think about or feel about something a certain way. And then from that point, you empower yourself to say, okay, well, if it was to happen again, it was a good outcome or a bad outcome or an indifferent one. How do I know that this is going to happen again? I'm going to repeat that action or that emotion again because it was a good outcome, or how do I change it? And I mean, that's the process I use. That's the framework I used. That's how it starts. And it does take time. But you got to remember, I was on a journey that I wanted to learn myself. Like I was so passionate about this. So yes, it's annoying. Yes, it was take time. But for me, it was, I seen the value in it. So I kept doing it. Where you see with my reflection now, I write poetry around certain ideas. I come up with stories, short films that I'll keep on a short film for a period of a month to finish off one idea of reflection. But it's just the art of writing now. I do like certain poems around different structured poems. Sometimes I draw pictures of my reflection just to visualize what I'm thinking. So when you start to get really good at it, and not good at it's probably the wrong word. When you get so accustomed to it, you start to really play around with it. And some of the stories and poetry that I've written on the back of it, I'm not a poet or a storyteller either. But when you start to play around with certain concepts and songs, you can write songs, you blow yourself away with how creative you can get, and it's enjoyable. So it shifts it from being, geez, it's a task, but I know the benefit of it. I have to do it. I've been told, I've read, I have to do it. It becomes an addiction. And like I get really nervous. Like if anyone's trained or does something consistently, if they lose 2 or 3 days in a row after training pretty consistently for a period of time, they start feeling really weird.
Yeah.
That's how I feel when I don't reflect. And the other thing is when you do it, a lot of people try to put it at a bookend of their day. So they try to do it before they sleep. I do it whenever. So I do it.
Yeah.
I do it whenever. So I don't really have a chosen time when I do it. And the other key thing I would say is it's not always in my book either. Sometimes I do it on my phone. 95 to 99% of the time, once it's written, I don't look at it again. Right? It's just the art of doing it. But ultimately, I think there's some tips and tricks that people can use to get better at reflection.
Yeah, they're making that subjective objective when you get it out. Yeah.
Yeah, agree. And that's why it's so much better to have it on a piece of paper because there's just some sort of power about putting thoughts onto page, right? And it's a little bit more powerful, in my opinion, than digital, like doing it on iPad or whatnot. I found just writing it's a nice little art. But again, you'd just be amazing at how much advancement you get when you do it consistently. The other thing I'd say too is, and maybe people listening will know this, but it's probably not what people will say is healthy. But you need time. You need to teach yourself solidarity. You need to have time to you need to kind of you need to kind of like teach yourself to be comfortable with just yourself and boredom,
Yeah.
for instance.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to sit down and just relax through it and have a subject thought and just explore it. It's a skill set you need in business. So a problem might come up. People that don't practice solidarity or have a process where they can sit down and reflect on their day over an hour will find it really hard to kind of think through the haze of business. Because I do that a lot, I can sit and listen to maybe an opportunity, a problem, whatever, and I sit down and I can just sit there and look at that board, which has got what the problem is or what the opportunity is, and just my mind can be so engaged in that one word or that one phrase, and I can start to make sense of it with no problem. And I think that magic happens when, I've always looked at it, 9 to 5 is when I work. I'm completely engaged in what needs to happen. But then from 7 o'clock to midnight that's where I really get ahead in life. And that's kind of like this hardcore kind of business concept, like work, work, work. But there's something magical that happens from 7 to 12 at night. Your mindset goes on a certain creativity level. It's magic that you see things completely differently if you consistently do it. If you were to ever to put yourself on an 80 to 100 hour week where that 7 o'clock to 12 o'clock stint was just you in a room, not doing work, thinking about strategy and thinking about certain things, if you were to do that for 3 months straight, you would take your mindset and the way you look at your business to different levels, completely different levels. And you can't do it just in the thickness of the day. It's weird. You know what I mean? So, I think it's really important just to try to do things like reflection, which puts you away from the world for a bit and just get used to that because it is a really incredible skill to use when you're in business.
Oh, there's the gold right there.
Yeah.
7 to 12 for 3 months. Love it. If I can just draw you back to the present, you've got some exciting year ahead. And you said this is the make or break for Airlocker. What do you see? Obviously, you're selling lots of franchises. You're rolling out internationally. Yep. What are the hurdles for you this year?
First and foremost, when you start to take the brand outside of home base, that's always going to be a challenge. It's always going to be a challenge. So that's going to be one of our biggest challenges is to support the brand as it goes outside of the home base of Australia. Different legal systems, different cultures, whatnot. So we just got to be on the ball there, and we wouldn't have been going overseas unless we're ready. So that's going to be a big challenge. This year, really for us, is optimizing the product we have. So we're introducing a lot of innovation, or I suppose in tech project. We're introducing 3 key things this year, which when you introduce new things to a franchise model, you've got to over communicate that. You've got to really communicate that well to your franchisee brand, and things like a new member management system, a new membership app is coming involved. We're doing a tech development around business support. So we're doing a wearable tech that we're introducing as well, plus the allied health service is going to kick on. So there's some key things there, right? So for us, it's just introducing them the right way, making sure that the brand is over communicated to and get that right. So yeah, global expansion is going to be tough. That's going to be one of our challenges. Plus introduction to 3 key projects. And the third one is to grow the team, right? And you really need to build the team around the right values and the right systems, right governance. And this is all new for our team because prior to this, it's been startup phase. Mm-hmm. So it's like 10 hats, let's go, let's do it, but now it's very much structured. There's a lot more layering involved at the moment, which has got a huge benefit for scale. However, it's going to be a new way of operating for our team. And as we grow our team, we've got new people coming in, that's new energy. We've got to manage that right. So, just making sure the team is okay, making sure that we build the right team, the right culture is always going to be a challenge, always evolving challenge, but something I'm really looking forward to. And then growing the business outside of home base and introducing some of these major projects. They're going to be the major issues we find or challenges we have this year. But we see it. we see it coming. Hopefully all the challenges we have, Stephen, is ones we can see.
Yeah, it'll be nice.
And I mean,
there'll be something.
I could have went down the path of the macroeconomical issues we've got with inflation, but really, this is kind of one thing that I find with Air Locker in our industry. It's we're not at a scale to a point where that's a big contributing factor, So really, it's internal things that I see as we need to focus and execute well on them.
Awesome, thank you. So just one last one. Anyone who's watching this and is inspired by your story and maybe wants to get involved in Air Locker, who are you looking for in terms of franchisees, and what should they do?
Yeah, well, Air Lockers might be a little bit different to other gym products on the market. It's built for the investor.
Okay.
It's not built. It's heavily frameworked. It's heavily corporate governance. It's built for the investor. If there's owner operators out there that want to run the business, they still get the benefit of understanding the investment part. So we're looking for people that I feel like if you look, what do we do? What does Air Locker do? Pretty much everything. We've set up all the strategies and tactics, the guides, everything's done for you. It's like very much a turnkey business. So the people we're looking for is people that can build a team. That's their responsibility. Somebody that can build a great team, somebody that's engaged with our journey and what we're trying to achieve. Someone buys into that, and someone's passionate about helping others and their values align, but definitely somebody can build a team. That's a skill set that some people have and some people bypass, right? Some people are doers and they want to do everything themselves, which they could be great operators, but for us, it's a team environment to create a really good Air Locker training studio. So we look for someone that can build a team, that can unite and spark motivation from their team members and their employees, and ultimately, follow the bouncy ball. And if they want to contact us, we're online, airlockertraining.com. Be happy to have a conversation and see whether or not this is an investment for both of us.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Roman. That was
been a pleasure, mate.
That was inspirational, and there was some really, really good nuggets in there for other business owners who are perhaps behind you on the journey to get, and particularly that piece about reflection. It's great to see how it's working for you.
No, that's
thank
awesome,
you.
Mate.
Excellent.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it, champ.